Hey everyone, I'm Rachel,
And I'm Jen, and welcome to Devilish Bookworms, the podcast.
where we read and review books and release episodes every Tuesday.
This week we have The Bloody Rose by Christopher Stanfield.
Yay!
So, this is an interesting one, folks, and I think we picked a perfect time for it because this book is about Apple Rose, a bubbly cheerleader. You know, the typical blonde hair, blue eyed Barbie doll kind of girl that usually is the most popular in the school that everyone's after. Well, that's our Miss Apple Rose. But what everybody doesn't know about her is she's actually a serial killer. Her best friend happens to find out one night while she's with one of her friends that's trying to take advantage of her. And little did she know that Apple Rose would be the one to save her, but also kill her friend. And that, folks, leads us on an adventure of how Apple Rose has gotten away with murder and will continue to get away with murder, and how her best friend plays a vital role in all of her life. Now, I understand that vital role of the best friend because that would be my Rachel.
Aww.
Well, if it wasn't for you, I wouldn't have any idea what to do with my life. And Miss Apple Rose has that same feeling, especially now that her biggest secret is out. She now feels so much better about her life because her best friend knows everything. I don't want to give too much of a summary, but most of the victims that she has in her wake have been not the most savory of folk. They are the most deplorable, the despicable type of men that we have on this earth. The ones that use and abuse and take advantage of women. And those are her chosen victims. Well, on that note, let's just keep on rolling with this. Rachel, what did you think of this book?
I actually really loved this book. And you know what's weird is for reasons. This book was actually really hard for me to read at first, and it kind of brought up a lot of stuff. So there is a beautiful trigger warning at the beginning of the book. I wouldn't even be able to read the dedication to you if I tried. There are some things that I'm really good at, like, Van Damme, like straight face, kind of compose yourself for. That dedication, I would not be able to read. So I was thinking about, like, oh, it would be cute to like read the dedication. No, I can't do that.
But I can.
Oh, okay.
Let me interject here and I'll read the dedication and then Rachel can go forward. So, the dedication is this: to all those who have ever had to live with the trauma of sexual assault, of domestic abuse, or neglect, to all those who have carried the unimaginable burden of a story too painful to share or speak of, to all those who struggle to remember a time free of the guilt that so many survivors still carry, Apple Rose is for you.
Hmm. Yeah. So there you go. So yeah, there was some really hard bits to talk about and to read about, and there were parts in this book where I even felt like ashamed to read it. I'll expand on that later on, but it was intense to me. I think it's the book that a lot of people need to read.
I was reading this a lot at work, and everybody kept stopping because of the way that the cover looked. It doesn't really give you much. It's a woman that's standing with a dress and a cheerleading pom pom, and then there's a knife and a rose on the bottom. And everybody's like, oh, what's that about? And I would proudly say it's about a murdering cheerleader that is taking revenge back for people that can't take it themselves. And they were like, what? What? What do you mean? I was like, okay, so there's men that are taking advantage of women, whether it be raping or touching them inappropriately or just not understanding. No. And she takes care of them. She makes sure that they don't continue to harm women. And they're like, oh, that's disgusting. I'm like, no, that's amazing. I'm sorry, but I can get behind a book that sits there, and I can't justify murder, but at the same time, I'm not going to frown upon someone who's being a vigilante for women that have been abused, been wronged. I can't, I'm sorry. I can't frown upon it.
I'm kind of one of the ones that are of the opinion I couldn't care less about vigilantism. I'm here for a vigilante because vigilantes are not constricted by the laws and the opinions of man, right? Like Rorschach can go out and do whatever he wants because one, he doesn't have that no murder policy like Batman does.
Mm.
And two, like he cares not for paperwork or procedure, and neither does Apple Rose. And so that's actually one of the reasons why I had kind of a little bit of a hard time reading it at not hard time reading it at this point, but it was kind of like guilt, because I kind of went into this book thinking that it was going to be a men versus women book, and I'm having a hard time with that in life because right now you go on to any female's post and there's a ton of comments from males saying the most heinous gross stuff, and then you also go on to men's videos and you see women saying the most disgusting things. I've seen things from both sides, and both sides are wrong, and both sides have people saying things that are very correct. And so I went into it kind of thinking like, okay, this is going to be rough because as much as I do have that, yes, female victims should be heard, but there's also male victims, which Stanfield added an element into the book, and I am so happy and I'm so thankful that he did it, because it was we'll get more to that later on too. I don't want to jump around too much. But that's where my guilt was, because I was like, okay, there's this guy and she's murdering him for being kind of sleazy. Does that warrant murder? And I was like, it is a book. This is a book. And yes, there are instances of real life, but it's tiring towing the line. You know what I mean? This is a fictional character. And yeah, he said something sleazy to her. If she wants to murder him because of it, by all means. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. It was one of those I had to kind of get over that. Well, I mean, does it warrant murder? Yeah, in the book it does. Right now it does.
Yeah, I can't tell you how many times I've had lewd comments or just inappropriate things said, done to me while just being at work. Okay. I've had a customer come up and slap my ass, and he literally almost got laid the fuck out. But I also have had a customer recently that will continuously say lewd comments or suggest lewd behavior, and it's very disturbing. It's very inappropriate. It's not warranted. I don't ask for that type of comment or whatnot. So I was a little bit more accepting of Apple Rose's behavior at some points because of some of the things I've heard, I've seen, I've had to deal with. So it wasn't as much of a leap for me, but at the same time, like, it's if it's in a book, it stays in a book. That's fine. Yeah, I'm not gonna go out and go murder this guy because he said those things to me. That's not my behavior. I'm gonna freaking put his ass in place while he's right there in front of me, in front of a whole store of customers, and make him feel like a small person. But he brought that on himself.
I mean, I've definitely had stuff too. Like I've had all of the same comments and all of the same things, you know
Yeah,
what I mean? Like but it was more so the fact that like I always try and advocate for, the people who don't have voices, and that's not always a female.
exactly.
When I came into the book, I genuinely thought that it was going to be men are gross, females are the best, blah blah blah. And it's kind of like I it was kind of a grain of salt. I was like, well, because that's not always true. You know what I mean? There's plenty of men who also are victimized and who also have those things happen to them. Is it so far out in the open? No. So I kind of had that little, no, it wasn't an ick. It was just kind of like okay, I'm gonna have to get out of my yes and mindset,
Right.
because whenever I hear, something like that, I don't want to also be like, yes and yes, but you know what I mean?
Exactly.
Because a victim's a victim, you know. And the worst part is and you see it in the book is the fact that you don't choose. If you're going about your day and someone decides to follow you home and murder you, right? You don't have a choice in that. That someone else literally, I mean, yes, you can fight back if you're in the position to fight back, but like literally all it takes is one person to decide the rest of your life, not in a defeatist way. And I don't want that to come out the wrong way, but like if a male is dating a woman and she decides that today's the day that, you know, she rolls him up in a carpet, you know.
Which is a great thing about Stanfield's writing is he didn't just make it all about females against males, because we meet Max. I want to say like the mid half of the book. And unfortunately, Max is actually part of an abusive relationship. And it took one look from another girl for him to get punched in the face. And that's not right either. I don't care if you're a woman or a man, you don't hit each other. You don't hit someone that you love. And if you do, then you don't love that person. Words hurt, fists hurt. Any type of physical and mental abuse is not acceptable. It doesn't matter. Abuse is abuse is abuse. So cut the shit. That's for one. If you have that toxic behavior, be by yourself. Don't drag someone else into it. Max shouldn't be a victim, nor should any of the other women that were brought up in this book, nor should any other male or female or non binary or whatever pronoun that you use should be a part of any sort of abuse. It is not right. So, no matter what, we're never going to advocate for any sort of abuse. We're going to always advocate against it. Doesn't matter what kind of fucking person you are. So, that's where Rachel was going with that.
Yeah. Yeah. Because I feel like sometimes it's hard because like every situation is unique. Anyone could be a victim, anyone could be a perpetrator. You know what I mean? There was an episode of The Rookie. They went out to a home and the male was he was a big boy. He was a boxer and his wife was this tiny little thing. And it was a domestic dispute. And then they left. You know, they pulled the woman aside. They were like, hey, like make sure that you call if there's anything wrong. Like you don't have to stick up for him. You don't have to put up with it. And she ended up murdering her husband, not because he was the abuser, but because she was the abuser.
And that just goes to show that it could be anybody.
So I know that we've gone off on a little bit of a tangent, but it's something that's very, very, very close to both mine and Jen's hearts. But in the story, Apple Rose it's kind of like the Buffy effect, right? Like she's this beautiful 17-year-old, blonde hair, perky, bubbly, you know, and she just happens to be a serial killer. And she's not a serial killer because, you know, something happened to her. It's because of the fact that she likes murdering, and thankfully she uses that murdering gift to rid the world of scum.
Yes.
But what I thought was awesome is in the book, in the very, very beginning, so it's not a spoiler, you find out that her great grandmother was also a serial killer. And no one else in the family knows, but an incident had happened when Apple Rose was young, and her great grandmother had found out and sent all of her journals to Apple Rose. Now, there is a quote unquote serial killer gene. It's the MAOA gene. It's also called the warrior gene. And then there's also a CDH13 gene, which the CDH13 gene is associated with extremely violent behavior. So I think it's awesome that he kind of put that little nod to actual science in there.
I applaud him. He did his research. I won't lie. The way that he wrote this book made it feel more realistic, I guess you could say. As he's writing it and he's telling you all these different things about Apple and kind of giving you all of the information that you need, he also does give you her thoughts. Like, so as she's killing or as she's doing something or making a decision, she's actually giving you those thoughts and putting it into perspective for you, which I found actually really great. So even though her grandmother had this same illness and all this, and they both chose to murder people to, you know, solve
To
their
pass the time.
yeah, to solve their qualms with life, whatever. It just I don't know. I it made it more relatable and realistic in my mind to sit there and have her say, "Oh yeah, I think I need to do this," or he does need to be relieved of his manhood.
I have a question.
Oh boy.
So this book is set in 1996. And the reason why we know this is because in the book, Apple Rose talks about how she wants to go see Scream in the theaters. My question to you is, how do you feel about pop culture in books?
Honestly, I don't mind it, especially when it brings me back. I'm like, oh, I remember I had a sleepover and we watched that. So I honestly don't mind the pop culture references at all. I think they again tie it to something that we can put into perspective,
Mhm.
which helps us kind of relate more to the story and be able to just get a little deeper into it.
Yeah. On social media, I saw someone say that they hate pop culture in books because it dates the book. And I'm like, yeah, that's precisely the point. I love pop culture in books because to me, and not for the sake of like, you could tell when something is plugged just to be plugged, and you can tell when something is plugged naturally and organically. And I love when a good reference is made. It puts you in that mindset, it puts you in that time frame. They said Scream. Okay, well, what other movies came out in 1996 that they could have said? You know what I mean? And the reason why that's relevant is because Scream is very much something that Apple Rose would like. She would love that movie. I would too, because Skeet Ulrich is a snack, but that's just me. So, and we can't forget Matthew. I mean, he was amazing. But yeah, that's why I love pop culture in books. I think it's fantastic.
As I was reading this, and obviously we talked about the fact that she has a best friend, Cindy Nix. Love the name, by the way. Love the name. um, but I love their relationship because of the main thing. And you already know what I'm gonna say. It reminded me of us. This chick was so fucking ride or die. It was incredible. And the fact that how do I put this? I'm not saying that you and I would be murderers, but
We're not saying we wouldn't be murdered. I'm just kidding.
but let me tell you, if this isn't the behavior that I expect out of you, you
So
find out I'm a murderer.
Apple Rose?
Yes.
Yeah, that tracks.
Yeah, exactly. If you find out I'm a murderer, you best believe you better be helping me get away with it. But no, it's just like I need everybody to understand this fact that it doesn't matter what you saw on those pages. If that is literally not Rachel and I, her in the Nirvana shirts with the jeans, her friend who's the perky, bubbly, that's me. So,
Facts.
I mean, instantly I'm like, oh my fucking God. Did he like literally meet us and just make us murderers or something? Like, just like her freaking out that I'm doing something stupid. Yeah, yeah, that's Rachel. Always saving my ass from doing something stupid at that too.
You know what's funny is Stanfield said something on Threads one time about how one of his characters just rolled her eyes whenever her friend murdered someone. And I commented on it and I was like, excuse me. But yeah, no, it's totally that exasperated, like, oh, okay, this is what we're doing, I guess.
Oh, she wants to put herself in danger. All right, guess here we go. Let me drive you there.
So going back to when Cindy finds out about Apple's proclivities, I kind of want to, it's going to get me off on another little tangent, but I kind of need to. So in the scene, Cindy, she goes out to the woods with a friend she's known her entire life. And the reason why I want to bring this up is because we are 100% taught what to do when the aggressor or the attacker is a stranger. We 100% know what to do. We're taught to look around, never put your head down, carry keys in your hand. You're taught to cover your glass. You're taught to, all the major points on a person that you have to hit. We're taught to scream fire because that's what people will pay attention to instead of help. You're taught to, all of these things, but no one tells you how to react when the aggressor is someone that you love and are friends with. No one tells you how to react when it's someone that you have to see every day. Logically, you would think that you react the same way. You logically, that you protect yourself the same exact way. But part of you also knows that if you do protect yourself from this person that you love and respect the same way that you would as if they were a stranger, scratching, punching, kicking, then you're going to meet, what are you doing? Why are you acting so crazy? I was just joking. I was just playing. I wasn't going to hurt you. And so then, you're made to look like you're crazy, that you feel like you're overreacting. And that's really hard when you don't expect that from some people. You don't expect that behavior from friends or loved ones. You expect them to have your back and respect what you say. And when you say no, you expect them to listen because you expect that the people you love and care for give a damn what you say. And when they don't, you don't know how to react. I loved the fact that that was put in there because it was, oh God, it was really rough to read. But people say pick better friends, pick better partners, and like, how are you supposed to know? You know what I mean? Like, is there a list of attributes that you look for? How were you supposed to know that your friend was going to act a certain way, or that your friend was going to be the person who was the one who did something? You don't think to keep your head up around people that are supposed to be better than that. You don't think to carry your keys in your fist around someone that you hang out with and see every day.
And on top of that, some people are just masters of illusion, just like
Yeah.
Apple Rose was. She was that bubbly cheerleader. You wouldn't think that she would be going around murdering people, but here we are.
That was my favorite thing, was when he put in there like, okay, this is the face that you make now. This is the move. I have to make my breath catch in my throat. I have to,
Oh,
because it showed
yes.
how manipulative she was.
Yes.
And if you think that that's not how manipulative other people are,
Let me tell you, we know from firsthand that people that are meant to love you don't always love you how they're supposed to, or you think that they're going to. And those little things that people do, those mannerisms, they mean a lot. And so many people pass over the littlest movements. Like, if you piss someone off and they just cut you that eye real quick, or just like slightly like jump towards you, they might not see that, but you as the person that's in the situation observe it, and fuck, you're in trouble. And as you said, you're taught at a young age to carry your keys in your fist. I saw something on Facebook that absolutely disgusted me, because there was a group of men that sat there and said, how many times did you need to use those keys though? That's not the point. It's the point that if it could happen, we have to be ready for it. You don't know when those situations are going to occur. You don't know if someone's going to follow you. I had no idea that someone was watching me from across the street at one point, and I was told by someone else that actually knew the person that was watching me. And ever since then, I've carried a knife with me because I don't know if that person's ever going to pop up again. And I'm sorry, but I would rather be safe than sorry. And that is one of the situations that you're taught as a kid. Be safe, don't be sorry. And
Mm-hmm.
as a female, you have to learn to keep yourself safe. As a man, you're expected to keep yourself safe. You're expected to be ready for a fight at all times. And that's not fair either. But at the same time, we have to expect that same fight. It might be a different situation, it might be a different type of fight, but you still have to be ready.
Mm-hmm. And what's the most disgusting thing to me is the other day I saw a post on Threads, and it was a woman, and she was talking about how men are objectified by society for certain, for all of these reasons, and she lists a couple of reasons. And then all these men came in and they were talking about how, you know, so many things. Just the fact that if a man is shorter, then they're looked down upon. If a man isn't, muscular, then he doesn't have any worth, or men are supposed to provide, and if a man can't provide, then he's worth nothing, and all of these things. People were coming in, women, men were all commenting all of these things, shedding light on the different aspects of society and of reality that tell men that they're less than for XYZ reasons. And there were so many men in the comments that were saying, well, you're just weak. You're just weak. If that makes you feel bad, then you're just a weak person. Or, all of these men who are putting other men down in this post that was meant to uplift men. And the worst, most disgusting thing to me is the fact that the same exact men who, when you say a female was assaulted, the same men who say, what was she wearing, are the same exact men who would tell a man to stop crying because that's being a wuss, or that's being weak, or that's being, you know what I mean? And it's like, these same people who do these things to females are the ones that are the reason why so many men kill themselves, because they can't handle not being good enough, because they're told that they're not by other men, and that's disgusting to me.
Yeah. And, I'm not trying to downplay that, but women are just as bad against other women. And
Oh, of course.
and I'm sorry, society as a whole needs to be better. And the fact that men are looking down at other men for not being manly enough or whatnot, it's deplorable. And the same thing for women, like, oh, you're not pretty enough, or you don't dress skanky enough, or whatever the fucking fact may be. Stop. Just stop. Like, take a look at yourself in the mirror and ask yourself, am I a good person for even believing any of that? Because you're not. I'm sorry, you're not a good person if you believe any of that. Everybody is allowed emotions, everybody's allowed opinions, everybody's allowed to dress and do as they wish or believe what they wish. But the fact that you have to look down upon those people because they don't believe or dress how you want them to, or handle a situation how you want them to, doesn't make them any less of a person. That makes you less of a person for actually speaking those things to that person. Be better.
Yeah, be better. We're literally just a society of people who are all uncomfortable. We are all scared. We're all, feeling a certain type of way, screaming into the void because no one listens, and we're the only ones that can listen. Yeah, no, see guys, I told you this book brought up some things for me.
Yeah. Yeah. It was enlightening, but also disheartening at some points, because you realize that society really does think or act or portray situations like that. It brought a whole fuck ton of emotions, and at one point I had to stop reading it, and I was cruising through this book for a while, but I had to stop reading and just like collect myself because I just couldn't handle some of it,
Mm-hmm.
because it hit too close to home.
Yeah, I'm sure it did.
I applaud Stanfield for being able to pull that type of emotion out of everybody that I'm sure will read this, but just to be able to portray it across the pages was really great.
We've read a bunch of books. We've read a bunch of books by ourselves. We've read a bunch of books for the podcast. And we've had a lot of books that made us feel things, you know what I mean? Like we've had stuff come up, right? And but it's never been anything, for me at least. I've never read anything that hit so hard as this. This hit, it was a completely not what I was expecting, and it hit me in the gut and left me like gasping for breath sometimes because of of course the symbolism that's in there, the metaphors that are in there, the meaning, the deeper meanings behind the words on the page. It just hit me a certain type of way constantly.
And I have to agree because I can't tell you how many fucking notes I've got and tabs and post-its and like literally just like half of this book is so fucking colorful, it's ridiculous. And as we're recording, I'm pulling them off because I know I'm gonna pass this book on to somebody else to read because
Mm-hmm.
I've already told them you need to read this. But it's just like my thoughts on this book were just so overwhelming that I overwhelmed myself with how many freaking post-its I used.
Yeah, it's nothing that like I thought it was going to be.
I have to make a comment here. I know all about being terrified and blessed, for the lack of a better word, to have a best friend that is all of the things that you need a best friend to be, that knows you,
Mm-hmm.
all of you, that is like literally the only human in existence that will ever know all of me, but she still loves me. And I know that they say parents don't love their child any less. While that is true, a parent doesn't always know their child 100%, but my best friend 100% knows me and still loves me and has never wavered from anything that I've told her. Her friendship has literally been 100% true from the beginning. And I need people to know that and to understand that when they read this book, that this is how I saw this, especially the fact that Apple gave her darkest secret and Cindy did not waver from her. She might have been disgusted by what was happening, but that did not change anything about the way that she loved her.
Oh my God, you're literally the sweetest thing. That's 100% accurate. And it's something that I loved that was portrayed in the book. And I'm not just skipping over your words. I mean, you know how much I adore you. But I love that it was portrayed because of the fact that like you don't always love what someone does, or if someone does something, it might not be something that you want them to do or that you would prefer them to do. But just because you don't love everything that your best friend or your loved one does, that doesn't change the fact that that's who they are. You know what I mean? Like I've I might not love everything that someone does, but it doesn't make me stop loving them. There are things, of course, that could happen that would make me, love someone from afar. But I loved that that was put on there because it was like, okay, well, this is something that we will get through together because I don't give up on people, and neither did Cindy. And I loved the fact that she didn't.
Yeah, it was a true testament of her character. So I was digging that very much so.
So many people, I mean, they say that they're ride or die. There's so many people that say, I'll be with you through anything. There's so many people that say, like, there's nothing you could do or say that would make me, whatever. And it's like, it's true until it's not, right? A lot of people will say that. But then when push comes to shove, you know, they'll leave you for a whole lot less, or they'll stop loving you for a whole lot less.
Absolutely. And it's more common than you think because it could take like literally nothing for someone to just break off from you. But
Mm-hmm.
this is what I love about their friendship, because there was nothing. There was no way that they would literally separate from each other. And that was like the key part. This is another reason that I could relate to Apple Rose a little bit more. At one point, she had said if Cindy had asked her to stop, she would.
Oof, that was a good part.
It really was a good part because of the fact that she understood that if her best friend said that she needed to stop, that she would literally absolutely consider it because of the fact that she has more respect and love for her than what she was doing. And that was very vital.
And it took Apple off guard. When Apple thought it, she was like, oh, hold on. Would I? You know what I mean? Like, it was one of those amazing epiphanies where it was like, holy crap. Yeah, no, I would. I'd stop.
Yep. And there's a lot of things that I've actually stopped doing because you didn't like them. So
I don't want to control you.
no, but you made a valid point, and that was the difference. Okay. You made a valid point on why I should stop these things and why it would be better for me to stop doing these things.
Mhm.
And you were 110% right. And especially like the way I perceive myself. You always told me to stop looking down on myself, give myself a chance, how strong I am as a person. And
Mhm.
without you saying those things, I probably would have never believed them because I'm never going to believe that about myself. But at the
Yeah.
same time, I've stopped being so hard on myself and I've stopped allowing so much to be drawn from me from other people
Mhm.
because of you being there and saying those things and me respecting what you were saying. So there's a difference between respecting and loving someone's opinion and just doing it because they tell you to do it.
Yeah. No, that's absolutely true. And you know what else to add on to that is like, I think that's the power of trusting someone, of truly trusting someone. Because if I just said, Jen, you're stronger than you know, it's like, okay, yeah, I get it. But if you also trust the fact that I can see things in you that you don't see in yourself, if you don't trust the fact that I would never lie to you, if you don't trust the fact that I want the best for you, if you don't trust me, then my opinion wouldn't hold weight. And it's the same thing with you. I hold your opinion in the highest regard because of the fact that I know that no matter what happens, people say these words all the time. And I don't think they really know what it means, but no matter what happens, I know that you'll be there for me. And so, yeah, yeah, words have meanings, dudes.
Absolutely. Now, speaking of words that have meanings, did you have a favorite quote?
You know what's funny is you said speaking of, and I was like, oh God, she's gonna change the topic. But one of my favorite quotes, one of the quotes I wrote down was when Apple says, I want her to see me exactly as I am. Because that's so powerful, man.
It really is.
To be seen, for someone to actually see you and yeah, and pay attention to what you like, what you want, what you don't want, which what makes causes you pain, what makes you happy. You know what I mean? All of the deep dark secrets that you have, for someone to see that, for someone to see you, man, it's a little sentence. It is actually it's two little sentences, but they are important. Did you have a favorite quote?
You know what's funny is one of my favorite sentences was, and it struck me, isn't that what we all want? Someone who could truly see us, ugliness and all. So, literally, best friends, 3,000 miles apart, and we're still literally doing the same thing, except just differently.
Yeah.
It literally goes to show that it doesn't matter how many miles between you, if you're best friends, you can fucking accomplish anything.
Absolutely, 1,000%. I had one that I loved because again, it was a reference, and there's a different reference I want to talk about in a little bit. But this one says, Alanis Morissette and murder just went hand in hand, she thought, with a marvelous smile dazzling her cherub face.
That's too
There's
funny.
something about Ms. Morissette. I swear.
So, my favorite quote is love and death and the madness of an ordinary life. Love and death go hand in hand, and they really do create madness in life. And I'm here for it either way.
I would do almost anything to not have an ordinary life. There's
Bro.
nothing that fills me with such anxiety as I feel when I think about just like getting a cute little house, living out your days, never doing anything, never seeing anything, never having adventures, never. Oh,
There's a difference between having a real life and a monotonous life. And, you could still have adventures and still do the everyday thing. And you just, I don't know, like my life might be ordinary, but at the same time, I'm still going to say everything's an adventure, because life, even in the littlest aspects, even the smallest ways, is an adventure. You don't have to live in utter monotony to have a good life. I
No,
don't know.
I get that. I understand that. But to me, like an ordinary life is literally just like getting up, going to work, coming home, making dinner, cleaning the house maybe a little bit, saying hi to your neighbor, and then going to bed and then waking up and then going to work. And you know what I mean? It's just so ordinary.
It is, and that's the life I live right now. It is ordinary, but at the same time, I live for the moments in between those.
I don't think you do just have an ordinary life, though. I mean, no, you're not traveling off to Spain, but also you have a podcast. How many people can say that that's not ordinary? That's out of the ordinary. You know what I mean? Like you do things. You don't have just kind of like a plain Jane, like,
You're right. I'm not 100% plain Jane.
and you're not ordinary. So there was a part where it was two separate characters, and they were talking about how Apple wants to be seen as harmless or as not dangerous. And I can't find the direct quote. It's in there some Stanfield, you know what I'm talking about. But someone said, well, she doesn't look dangerous, and the other character says, I'm sure she wants it that way, or something along those lines. Paraphrasing for the win. And it reminded me of a quote in The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. And I don't have the exact quote for that one either, but the quote was along the lines of, I think it's, I told him how to see me, and then I got mad at him for not seeing me as anything else. And I was like, boom, because like Apple's so cute because she'll sit there and she plays up the blonde little, like, ditzy cheerleader role, and then she gets mad at people when they don't look at her as anything other than she's like, yeah, you should be scared of me, I shouldn't be scared of you. And it's like, but honey, you yes, true, but how are they supposed to know? And that's not a knock on the book. I actually don't. The only note that I have on the book is that I think it would have been cool to see how Cindy and Apple's relationship was before, because they had been friends forever, but when the book starts, it literally starts with murder. So like you're kind of like thrown in, and then Cindy finds out. And the only note I have is that I think it would have been kind of cool to see a day or 2 days of how Apple kept the secret of how they interacted before Cindy found out and all of this stuff. But I mean, that was my only thing.
Yeah, I can understand that, because I mean, without knowing them as a pair of best friends, you wouldn't know that they're so much like us. I mean, I get it, but you know what I mean.
Right. So another cool reference that was made in the book, if people are not aware, is Gustave Moreau. Gustave Moreau was a painter. He was actually born April 6th, 1826 in Paris, and he died April 18th, 1898 in Paris. He was a painter, and he was basically the guy when it came to French symbolist paintings. He has a huge collection, and his paintings are in general just incredibly detailed. They're the kind of paintings where the more you look at it, the more you see, which is, if you've listened to anything we've recorded, right the frick up my alley. They can be pretty bloody. There's some bloody bits. There's some instances of not gore necessarily, but not gore. Um, his paintings are incredible. So if you do want to check him out, Gustave Moreau, amazing.
I can't say I've heard of him, but very interesting indeed.
Very, very interesting.
Thatty.
So, okay. You have a best friend. Your best friend is a serial killer. You find out that your best friend's MO is to serial kill abusers. Okay. These are people who are rapists, they are domestic violence perpetrators, they are just gross, scummy, awful people. Okay. Jen, my question for you is, if you had that best friend and
Mhm.
you also knew of someone who was also a very scummy, awful, gross person, would you have any
Mhm.
moral dilemma in giving up their name?
No,
Neither would I.
you didn't even need to finish that. No, no, nope. I'm sorry. Now, Chris Stanfield actually asked on Threads for names of people for his future books. And I threw out, um, and I'm going to read this
Oh,
verbatim. So
snap.
just give
Okay.
me a second. Oh yeah. Oh
We're
yeah, we're
going there.
going there in just a moment here. Uh,
I'm entertaining the people while you look. I wouldn't have a problem with a seat. I mean, I guess that goes hand in hand with, do you believe in corporal punishment? But I mean, if there's without a doubt, love me or hate me for this, but I don't think I would have a qualm giving up someone's name if I knew without even the slightest bit of doubt. I feel like I would totally give up some names.
okay, so you ready for this? So I literally asked Chris, "Ooh, please, 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 can one be Matthew, Matt, Mateo, or any other language variation of Matthew? I'm buying it regardless if you choose the name or not, but I think both of us could agree Matthew deserves an untimely demise in your book in the most gruesome way."
Can you read his response? Because his response was the cutest thing ever.
Poor Matthew, cut down in your prime.
Down in your prime. I saw that and I died.
So literally Matthew will be used in books 4 and 5, which I'm proud to say.
Mhm.
So my work here is done.
Although I will say that I hope he uses Matthew or Matt, because Mateo, I only think of Mateo Lane. And I don't know if any of you people out there know Mateo. I mean, he's a very popular comedian, but he is hilarious.
Well, I will say Matt was on the list twice, so I think it's going to be Matt or Matthew. So
Perfect.
let's hope. Here's to hoping.
Here's to hoping. So, this book, The Bloody Rose, was written by Christopher Stanfield. Of course, you have The Bloody Rose, but he has also written A Season of Angels, which includes The Girl in the Storm, The Woman in Darkness. Um, he also has some work on Kindle Vella. And Christopher is from Texas. He is currently working on his MA in creative writing from Southern New Hampshire University. And at the moment, he is currently working on, as we have mentioned, the follow up books to The Bloody Rose. You can find him at Instagram and Threads at Stanfield Writes, StanfieldWrites. And then on his Threads and Instagram, he has his link tree. So you will be able to find his TikTok, Amazon. There's Bloody Rose Audible ARC sign up. I can't not mention this. He also has a link to donate to Sandy Hook Promise, which, if you remember the Sandy Hook school shooting, it's to donate to that charity. There is also merchandise available and a newsletter. You can get his books on there. There's a lot on his link tree.
I'm here for it though.
I
And
know.
I can't wait to buy the next book.
All right, Jen, can you tell the children what we're reading next week?
So next week we are reading The Wind Will Guide Us by Sasha Valerio.
Yay! I will say that it is such a stunning cover. It's like cream colors and blues, and it kind of has like a kind of like a I don't know, a rained on look. Like, it looks kind of like aged, and it's a stunning cover.
All right, everybody. Like, follow, and subscribe and all of the things. And tune in next week.
Yay!
All right, everybody. We will see you next week. Bye.
Bye.